Riverside Chats, episode 9, Mel Stone. Here we go. Hi, this is River, and thank you very much for coming to Riverside Chats, to our live event with Mel Stone. So as we get started here, I just want to say, how are you, Mel? How's today going?
I'm doing great, River. Excited to finally be on. I've gotten to listen to so many of my co-moderators and getting some of the backstory and digging in a little bit deeper into the person and what kind of makes them tick has really been a pleasure. So I'm excited to be on, and thank you for hosting these and putting these together.
Oh, it's great. I'm just glad they let me do it. I'm just waiting until they say, "All right, we found somebody else." So I'm just happy to do it. And yeah, I've definitely always loved how we end up in just places we found out interesting things about everyone so far, and I'm sure today will be no no exception. But first, for you guys, let me just run through a few legalities here. Riverside Chats is a fully independent podcast. All views expressed are only mine and the guests. We do not represent anyone that we may work or contract for currently on this show. This is just two people chatting. And finally, the podcast sometimes features explicit language. So be aware of that. It is not recommended for minors. So if the kids are around, just keep that in mind. And I'm just happy to jump right into it. How was the market today, Mel? What did you think overall about it this very day?
Interesting. So we're coming off of, a holiday week. We definitely fell short of some volume last week and made for some tighter trading ranges. I always love after we have an OPEX what they start coming into
Yeah.
the flow. So these are my days that I really do a lot of observing and trying to see if we're seeing shifts or some themes starting to emerge. Are we seeing activity in maybe a certain industry group, or what we kind of have to look with, and where there may be repositioning now that there's been an options expiration? What names are they trying to come after? So this is my favorite time to get a feel for where they're willing to put some money to work.
Yeah, sure. And is it still kind of in that rotational in between repositioning, or are you seeing any big things, or do you expect to see any big things soon?
We had some good looking flow come through into some of the majors, albeit shorter dated. So we are right on the cusp of earnings, which makes it a little more challenging because you can tend to see, options flow that's going to be, calls and puts. I personally don't like to hold through earnings, but do love to catch some of that ER run up. Should we start to see some flow come through that can kind of spur that? So Apple. We had some dark pool activity today there, as well as some larger flow going to, I think it was 5-6. Amazon, Google, also started to kind of see a little bit come through NVIDIA, and all of those seeing some larger dark pool shares after hours. So definitely got my eye on some of those bigger ones. Always enjoy, a nice pullback, finding some support and having that momentum come in with the options flow. So just kind of having to navigate around, ERs, but it's that time.
Yeah, sure. The ER season. And for all you guys listening, if you guys have any questions for Mel Stone, just in your you'll see your GoToWebinar panel, whatever device you're on, in your upper right-hand corner. Probably you'll see a little questions box. You can just type the question in there. I will see it. I will relay it. So let us know if you have any questions. But I know this, Mel, and you can tell the truth. It's just me and you. This isn't being recorded or anything. You can tell the truth. Do you ever gamble, ER? Is that anything you ever do just for fun? Is that anything? I know you said you don't like to hold, but do you sometimes do it? Just curious.
No, not, and really
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
because I'm never that one. I learned that a long time ago. Like I'm never that lucky one that just randomly catches that like
Yeah,
huge move. I'm
yeah.
always anytime. And look, after you get your hand slapped a few times,
Yeah.
I just don't. Now, there are some leap positions that like my plan is to hold through ER. On some of my positions that are longer, like that was my plan when I took that, trade is to hold through. That's a little
Yeah,
bit
sure.
different because of the time, but I don't go picking up YOLOs. Like I try, and I have before, not anymore. I just,
Yeah, yeah.
it never, I'm always on the opposite side of that, yeah. Not
Yeah, yeah, I am too at this point. I did it the first two times I did it, like about a year and a half ago. I just got lucky, and I thought, oh yeah, I thought I was this genius. I'm going to play ER. That's what I'm going to do. And it took 3 or 4 times after that. I just got burned every time, and I finally just stopped doing that. But that's a big part of it. I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of DMs from people who have those intentions, and I'm sure that's probably a constant thing. You're probably advising people, don't YOLO on a regular basis, I would imagine. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yes, and I'll tell you, you remember a few years ago, Facebook had that great earnings. Mark just got on the conference call and just totally ruined that. And you had this
Mm.
big drop based off of some of those comments, which is true. Like everybody's like, what just happened? They beat, they raised, and then the commentary was what just killed that conference call. Now so I got lucky, and
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's it.
yeah.
Lucky, and that was probably the
Right.
worst thing that could have happened because I thought like it was just that easy. And then I was like, oh, just play ER. And then after getting your hand slapped enough, it was just like, I'm done. That was just pure luck, and people need to realize that sometimes when they when they're situating for that. The worst thing I think that can happen sometimes is that you actually do get lucky, because then you think it's just like the way to build your
Yeah,
account,
yeah.
and it actually will kill it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, people often will attribute, just generally, studies will show in psychology that people will attribute good luck to like their talent or their, abilities, and they attribute bad luck just to random chance. So I bet I'm sure there's a lot of that going on all over the land.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know here's what I have a question for you. The idea of this podcast is definitely that, I go around and I just talk to mainly black box stocks moderators, and to get some kind of, you talk dark pool and you talk market all the time. And I'm sure you love it. I'm sure you never get tired of the same questions over and over and over. Is it a buy or a sell? I'm sure you never get tired of those questions. But I'm hoping to like kind of get the idea is hopefully we'll learn a little bit about you guys kind of outside of, trading, just how you got into it. And a great place to start generally. I always like to ask people, when you placed your first trade, whenever that was, how long ago was that? And what made you think about even trying trading? What is the backstory with your trading journey?
So I had always had an interest in the markets, but I had no even thought. I thought everything was, like fundamental. So like early on, and I'm sure I'm going to get, we've all been there, but Kramer talking about the markets and the energy that he kind of came with it, some of that detail, and just, just kind of being able to study the markets, and just like, it was just really so interesting. And many moons ago, I worked at T. Rowe Price, which is a retirement.
Yeah.
I was in Baltimore, and unfortunately, I moved back to Texas, so I wasn't able to. But I wanted to be in a bigger firm that had the training and the opportunity to be able to learn more, about the markets. And I guess at that time, just being more naive and just you don't know what you don't know. I thought really like how markets were viewed and assessed were all through fundamentals, and that just really tripped me up. Like it was just that side of it, when you got to some of those books, to me was just it wasn't anything that ever really excited me. So I've always had that like that was kind of always something I wanted to be a part of. I just didn't really know the best way to approach it. So I started looking at like, your series, 7, 63, just kind of some of that, and did some self-study. And then kind of, I was in my, earlier 20s, kind of life happened, and kind of stepped away from that, and just kind of the normal, 9 to 5. I did go out on a leap. I kind of got side story. I kind of got really tired of the 9 to 5 and working for people, and I was really into poker. So I opened a poker room in Dallas.
Did you really? Okay.
Yeah. So it was an underground poker room in Dallas. And I loved being able to work for myself and know that everything that I was putting into it was what I was going to get. If I woke up late and wasn't prepared and didn't have everything going and didn't send out the texts for notifications, or just the results were just absolutely everything that was, what I had control of. And just was, man, there's so much energy that comes with that, being able to do something for yourself, and not having to work, for somebody else, and really being able to create and be self-sufficient. Like, there's just so much drive with that. And I think that's where, that kind of stopped doing that, moved on to we moved to San Antonio. My husband works in the oil field, so came down and got a job in the oil field, as well as San Antonio is not a big place for, financial firms or anything. So just normal, just 9 to 5, hated my job, hated driving, I hated the traffic. And so I was starting to, a friend of mine had said this was when the mining, everybody was getting into Bitcoin or mining Bitcoin. And I had gotten into everybody, like you had tea companies, you had whatever it was. And so I started kind of doing some searches on, Facebook, and then found StockTwits, and I was like, all those boards sometimes definitely a bit much. And so I just got in off the chatter, right? Like I was just like, and of course it didn't work out. So I was like,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I gotta say, we can't go from T. Rowe Price in Baltimore to underground poker room in Dallas without my brain wanting to know more about the underground poker room. So just to let you know, we're gonna.
Yeah. So
I got some questions.
Yeah. So just to wrap up the story, it just started, and the interest started to flurry more with some of the social media, which really opened the door to like, oh, well, what about this and this? And really I equate it to it. If you don't do this, I think you're doing it wrong. Fall down the rabbit hole. You have to fall down the rabbit hole. You have to just keep going, because every time you open and you're like, oh, okay, I get that. Then it's like Investopedia, right? Like, I don't know what that word is. Look that up. And then there's all those clickable links. And before you know it, you spent 2.5 hours, just way off on the other side. But you're finding stuff out, right? Because I think you're always going to be naturally attracted to, and you'll find what really kind of gets you to ticking as, a trader through that, like what you start to really try to investigate more. And I think that just kind of helps to round you out. And then you really start to, for me, it was the money flow that attracted me, to the markets. And that is, I think, one of the biggest things. And thankfully, like that curiosity came early, because when I was finally starting to get into it, and there was, so much TA. I mean, I think at one point I had like 13 indicators on my damn chart. Like I didn't know what to look at. I didn't know what was, it was so overwhelming, and everybody be like, oh, just it's this RSI, or it's this, or it's that. And it just was like, okay, but this is showing bearish, this is showing bullish, this is crossing over, but does this have to cross? And it really was overwhelming. And then all you ever heard anybody say was price and volume is all you need. Everything else is lagging. Price and volume is leading. And that kind of got me down the path of money flow, like thinking, okay, well, if we know that bigger institutions are the main drivers in the market and account for so much of the volume, where do I find what they're doing? And that kind of opened that door. But before we go further, I'll go ahead and add a little context. So, okay, so
It's a heck of a story. That is like an amazing story. You just kind of told us so many things.
yeah,
I
I mean,
love it.
it's just
I love it.
you're going to find something that naturally you're attracted to, right? And maybe it is indicators, or
Yeah.
you've got some people that like they're all about fibs, and then some that are all about Elliott wave. Doesn't mean that one or the other is correct or incorrect. It's just what makes sense to you
Mhm.
when you try to read price action. What is it that makes the most sense to you that you can
Yeah.
interpret and that you
Yeah.
can read? And that's kind of a windy road in and of itself. You kind of have to dabble in quite a few things to kind of find what really just makes sense to you. Some people it's moving averages, some people it's just horizontal support and resistance. And it doesn't mean that any one person is right or somebody's wrong. It ultimately comes down to what makes the most sense to you when you're trying to interpret price action on charts.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, so many approaches are, profitable a good percentage of the time. There's just that whatever you're going to use and learn, and then your psychology comes into play. And yeah, I totally agree with that. What if I wanted to start an underground poker room in Dallas? Like, what's involved in that? Was that a pretty straightforward thing, or was that kind of?
Uh,
I
it
want to
was the
know.
time. It was the
Yeah.
time. So I moved to I had lived in Texas, and I had moved with an ex to Baltimore who had family up there, and it was like, okay, let's just go. Let's just do it. It'll be interesting. I'm originally early on born in Jersey, so I've kind of been back and forth.
Okay.
Spent more time here in Texas, but it was like, okay, let's just do it, something new. And then I got up there and I realized it's really hard to meet people.
Mm.
Like once you kind of go outside of your comfort zone, it's just kind of like a little bit
Yeah.
hard. We had gone to a few pubs in the area and noticed that they were playing poker, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. It was just it was a league, and it was a way to kind of be able to bring in more people to the bars and restaurants. So they'd host the
Yeah.
games, and you'd get a crowd in there, and there was definitely a lot of interest. And one of the things, so I got signed up, and just like 2 or 3 times a week would just go after work, play poker, and just really loved it. And at that time, poker was really big, with broadcasting, a lot of interest around it. And I was like, oh, this is so neat. And I think one of the things that really what I loved most about it was the diversity. It's not just for one person. I mean, I think one time I had a rabbi on one side and like somebody like that was selling dime bags at a bathroom on the other. All you just don't, just
The
it's
good
just
old days.
complete just complete diversity with kind of who found that, and who was interested in poker, and just you'd get around and just have some amazing conversations. And I think that was just really so much fun to me, just meet so many new people and just kind of built some friendships there. And
Yeah.
and so then when I moved back down to Dallas, and I had loved that so much, and I hadn't lived in Dallas in years, so didn't really have too many people, Houston was more home for me, where my family is, and where I have a lot of friends. So it was kind of like, all right, well, that worked in Baltimore. Let me see if I can find some poker leagues around here just to kind of get out and be able to meet some people. And I went to one game, and somebody was like, oh, there's a cash game at somebody's house. And I'm like, okay. They're like, it's a poker room. I'm like, I had no idea. I ended up meeting
Interesting. Yeah.
my husband dealt there. So I ended
Okay.
up meeting my husband, of course, who I did not know,
Yeah.
at the time. And the group was just an amazing group of people. We had so much fun. And so this was an area that was way out. And, I told my my now husband, I was like, we should just do it. We should open one. We could do it so much better. And we just went for it. So we got, just all what we needed, and didn't know anybody because we were completely on a different side in a different area. So just started putting stuff on, Meetup and apartments, talking to people. We were in a business district, so that kind of helped. You had a lot of people that would work, come in from out of state, out of town, and their company would put them up for a while, and so they didn't have anything to do. So we kind of just got a group of people going, and then gosh, I think we ran that for about two years or so, and then ended up having my son. So it just the nights was not able to do, that kind of schedule, and so
Yep.
yeah.
So it wasn't licensed, or this was just a totally independent thing. It's not like you weren't under any licensing board or anything like that. Just totally independent.
Yeah, because it's not, it's not necessarily what now they've changed it where you can do memberships and stuff like that. But Dallas was huge. Dallas was full of bigger rooms and still is.
Yeah, sure.
You've got some people have been reworking that, I think, to do like membership stuff to be able to stay in line with kind of like what is allowed. So a lot's changed. I haven't kept up with it as much since we've moved here to San Antonio, but it was just kind of one of those, just one of those things that I was so on the fence about doing because it was kind of going outside of what the norm was and where your comfort was. And I just couldn't be happier that I did. And it's kind of similar with trading. Once I had been working here and I was doing a lot of self-study and just weekends completely inundated with, YouTube videos and just going through articles and then I found Twitter and some great follows on Twitter, and just kind of every time I'd look, I go like, oh, there's something new, and just spent all of my time just really trying to get a grasp, and got in the little rooms here and there, dabbled this, that, the other, and it was really, money flow. And I knew that, I think pretty much from the jump that was where I had to where it made more sense to me. And so that's kind of where my focus was. And so all in all, I think I'm about 4.5 years about 4.5 years trading, and this July will be 3 years with Black Box Stocks. So
wow,
yeah.
Well, that like the Dallas, the poker room, not just because it's, I mean, of course it's interesting because it's Dallas, and I'm sorry, it's an underground, poker room, of course, but I think that's a big part of your story because you said that's kind of where, I believe you said that's kind of where you got a taste of working for yourself, of no 9 to 5, and that was a big driver for you. So that sounds like that's a very key part of your development. I wonder if you would not have taken that chance, would you have maybe not have taken a trading chance, possibly?
Probably not.
Yeah.
We get ourselves, and it's hard. It's hard to do that when you've got a family to support and you've got bills. Like you're really stepping outside, and it's not the easiest decision, and there's ups and downs, and boy did, nothing but like a punch to the gut as soon as you decide to go trading full time to kind of really mess with your head. But it was a huge part because, again, like that part of it, that's what drives me. There's nothing about like the money or like it is just that whatever I put into it, I'm going to get out of it. There's going to be rough days, but I did this. I didn't go to college for this. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't pay somebody for certification. This is like my time, my dedication, and it is all 100% what I put into it. And to be able to sit here and go, damn, that feels good. And what an opportunity we have to be able to do just that. This is not something that you have to go to school for 6 years to be able to have this opportunity. It is straight up, whether you are from the streets or you are somebody completely switching gears and looking for something else because you're just kind of done with what you have. Everybody has the same opportunity. It's what they put into it that they're going to get out of it. Nothing feels better. Nothing feels better.
Sure, like it's your thing. That's what I'm hearing. Like this trading career, it's your thing for better or worse. And you own the good days and the bad days. And your story has definitely inspired a lot of people. And the dark pool coming into the situation. I mean, that early on, the idea of money flow, just the idea that the institutions are the ones that are really making the money, and how can we, follow them around via dark pool or option flow or whatever. That makes a lot of sense to me, and it made a lot of sense early on because, retail trading can be great fun, but it's not great for a lot of people. And that's kind of what I think we're kind of getting into, is this idea of the amazing community that Black Box provides. So how did you, once you started trading, how did you find Black Box? Like, first, did you do the Series 7? Did you go that route?
No.
Okay.
It was nothing that ever clicked. So I always put it to the side. I was like, this is the most boring shit ever. Like,
well, you don't want to calculate these options contracts and memorize all the rules of 1959.
Yeah. So it was and I said, if this is trading, I'm out. And then it was until like that whole TA side of it came at like, whoa, okay, like there's this way to read all this price action and see it differently. And to be honest, I don't trade fundamentals. I really never went down that rabbit hole because it was more, what made sense to me was what I have in my little world with what I can see, and just trying to kind of stay in my lane. It's definitely something I probably could use a little more insight on, and down the road we'll probably spend more time with, but just wasn't really that side, because I think you go into storytelling, right? Like,
yeah, sure.
Well, no, they're going to have some growth in 8 years. No, I mean, not right now. And then look how many people got their hands slapped. Just,
yeah. A lot of those narratives, they do seem kind of fortune teller-ish to me. So would you say you're just a pure technical trader who also, of course, follows institutional money through flow and dark pool?
I'd have to flip that and say money flow and then TA. I mean, with the heavily comboed, but I would say the first thing I'm looking at is the money flow and then the chart. Like, I'm not just going through every night and going through 1,000 charts to go, oh, what money flow came in on this one? This one looks good. I'm seeing money flow and going, oh, you don't usually see that. That's interesting. And then I'm going to the chart to kind of find where that setup is, what kind of pattern, what is that looking like, and trading it from there. So I'd want to start with more, it's the money flow that's bringing a lot of my attention to charts, and then I'm using TA to kind of manage those trades.
Yeah, sure. That makes perfect sense. So were you focusing on, specializing in dark pool before you found Black Box, or how does that work out timeline wise? Like, when did you come to Black Box?
So I had already had some experience with various, other options flow services. And I guess the biggest part that was frustrating to me was not having access to all the information. So however they filtered, or maybe they didn't have access to all the information, so they could only show you what they had. I don't know, but nothing was more frustrating than thinking you're watching options flow and you see something that somebody just posted on Twitter that's ripping, and you go and look, and you're trying to find it off this platform that you're using, and you don't have that same information. I was like, how can that be? Like, that's just kind of doesn't really make sense. But to back it up first, just a little bit more to kind of go on to, I dropped all the indicators, and I said, all right, if big money moves markets, like, I'm going to start watching the tape. And I was watching larger activity come through the time and sales. And I just wrote a notepad. I would write everything down on a notepad. And at the end of the day, I'd go back and go, wow, that's an interesting spot to come off, to come into something. That was like when Snap was trading at like $3 or $4, right? Like, or 5, 6, just, it was the worst, bad rep. Nobody wanted it. Just, bleh. But you had like so much size coming in, and it seemed like a lot of it was coming in, after hours. And so I was just like, okay, that's just, I know this is not where a big institution is dumping right here, right? Like, like, this is one I've got to watch. Like, this is what I'm going to keep on watch, because there's just had been millions. So I'd set alerts up, and then finally, like, that went off, and it was able to. I actually had, I think I had set up something that was like a few months out. This was, all before Black Box, but I was like, okay, damn, that's like really interesting, And so I would just do the same thing. I would just, every day there'd be a few tickers. I'd go through and just go through the time and sales. I didn't have a feed, but I was just really kind of trying to get a little bit more aware of, what that looks like. And institutions buy when there's no interest, when nobody wants it, and they've got that longer time frame. It's the accumulation phase. And So it was a struggle because I was very manually doing this, and I'd keep up with just a few tickers. And I mean, it would be the whole evening. I'd have notes all over the
Mm,
place.
mhm.
And so, uh, also from an options perspective, I was getting frustrated because it seemed like everything that was moving, I'd see on Twitter somebody posting a screenshot of something, and I didn't have it with, the service I was using. So it was pretty frustrating.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so they had a trial, and so I'd asked to get added to the trial, and
Mm.
Charlie got me set up, and this was a little different, bit of a different time.
I was about to
So
say it's probably was a lot fewer members back then, I bet.
yeah, and so we hadn't gone to bods only on voice, so anybody, like, if you had a
Oh,
you
wow.
didn't tag Charlie, you just got on voice and said, "Hey Charlie, I've got a question about this flow," and you're like, "What's up?" And look at it. um
Imagine that today.
ooh, which it was
Wow.
the best decision that they ever made, because a lot of what we would have too is people getting on and going, "I'm shorting something," and people would think it's a mod because you'd hear mainly mods
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
talking, and then you got
Mm.
somebody following, and this guy may have only been trading for 6 months and
Yeah.
didn't even
Right.
look at a
Right.
chart, or who knows.
Yep.
So it was the best thing that they ever did. But back then, if you had a question, you just asked a question. And I went to every class, and this used to be Charlie. He'd get so frustrated, he'd be like, if you guys have a question about this flow and this doesn't make sense to you, you need to be meeting me over here in this room. And he'd set up a different channel, and then he'd go
Yeah.
through it and
Yeah.
actually spend a little bit more time. So he wasn't kind of slowing down the one room, but it was constant, really detailed, how to evaluate it. And I think it just was so much different because, with so much information, and this is, I think, one of the biggest things. And if there's any takeaway from this at all, if you're newer trading, not every bit of options information that comes through this feed is unusual. It takes some time in the seat to
Mm.
really
Yeah.
hone your eye, and you have such an advantage when you have experienced people looking at the flow and talking through it, and it is the best way to learn. So be patient with yourself, above all else, and just really listen. Really listen. And why would somebody be mentioning that? Why is Charlie pushing that to the app? All those different things, and you'll be able to get yourself trained. But it was so different. First off, to hear people talking about, I remember Lulu came across, and Maria saying, "Lulu's on the list. When you see flow in Lulu, it works," because she has experience with it. And I'm like, okay, so like, let me add this and kind of start to make my own little list based off of some of the names that they've mentioned, because you just don't
Mhm.
see much flow in there. And that's kind of how it all started to come together. But interestingly enough, it was a Q&A session, and somebody had asked the question, "Why do we see the wicks in after hours?"
Mm.
And somebody said it's just a fat finger, and I had kind of kind of always been a talker, kind of piped up, and I'm like, actually, that's a dark pool print being recorded after hours. And Charlie was driving. I remember he's like, who's talking? And I'm like, this is Mel. He goes, "Oh, hey." And then the whole Q&A session, I felt so bad, like I hijacked the whole damn thing. The whole
Yeah.
Q&A session went to
Yeah.
dark pool.
Right. Right.
Um,
And that
and
was like 3 years ago, you said, approximately.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha.
And I
Gotcha.
said, I mean, I was in my trial week. I think it was Tuesday. I just signed up. I'm like, yeah, this is definitely the place for me. I didn't even wait, till the very end.
So you signed up on a Monday and you were hijacking the voice by Wednesday.
So
Uh,
there were just so many questions because they had the data feed. And then I remember I said, "I'm so sorry. I don't want to take over Q&A. I'm going to, you guys can tag me if you have any questions." And even Charlie was like, "No, we have the data. We just don't really know what to do with it. There's not enough people that have kind of like have experience trading around dark pool." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, no." And then so he was asking me some questions, and then asked some of my thoughts, and I was like, "You guys have, like, it looks like there's market on close orders in here, which is kind of like
mm,
skewing some of it. It's not just." So he got me in touch with Eric. He's like, "If you want to give him a call and help him like refine, what do you want to see?" And so I got to work with the team. And then I think it wasn't, I don't know, it may have been the end of that week that I was a mod.
Wow.
It was quick. It was quick.
You were the right. So, okay. So 2 things. First up, so it sounds like Charlie is a huge part of recruiting you basically and bringing you in. And I'll say this, everybody I've spoken with on this show, including myself, Charlie has randomly found everyone. What's his, something's going on. Like, how does he do it?
He's got a gift for it, Van. He does. He's got a gift.
Everybody's got a story though. Like it's just random, and this was happening, and Charlie said this, and then before you know it, you're working for Black Box. Like it's phenomenal. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like same thing.
No, he has a gift. He really does. He really does. But there was really a need because he goes, I've been trading for 20 plus years. I've never we have the data, we have all the information, just don't really know how to put it all together. And I need somebody who's kind of got some eyes and experience, can walk through and talk through and explain this, and even just to me, I would want to learn, so that was kind of the bigger reason for joining, was just to be able to take that on, just so that we can make sure that everybody really, the bigger thing, because the assumption was always that it was just a buy, and that's absolutely so incorrect. We don't know the intent, and so it's more like it's really important, just because you don't want to go with that assumption, and then you're getting yourself on the wrong side of a trade. We're still just looking at the chart, but there's to be able to have so. And I know dark pool's a buzzword. It's a lot of people don't really understand, but there's so much really good information there. And when you can start to see activity coming into different industry groupings, and a lot of times you're seeing that already taking place before we see options flow. And then once we have that options flow come in, it's yes, go time. It's really, really interesting. And I know you wrote that blog a few weeks ago, or about 6 or 8 weeks ago, when we had chatted about all that semi activity, right? I was like, man, this is, you don't see this. And again, it's getting your eye built around what do you see? What do you not see every day? What sticks out as something unusual? And that takes some time to see. But having and being able to talk about that stuff as it's coming in, or recapping, the next morning with some of the stuff that was a little bit unusual. It's weeding out a lot. It's weeding out a lot of information, but we really do get some insight there. So not only, it just really ends up being, best of both worlds, in my opinion, because you've got, the dark pool, which is the private exchanges, and then you've got options flow, which is lit. There is no dark pool. Everything that you see in options is exactly what they're doing. And it takes some time, but what a gift to be able to follow along. And let me tell you, I would rather follow smart money than retail chatter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to know. I couldn't trade without it. I really couldn't. It's such a big part, and I just love being able to kind of put all that together and seeing all that stuff come in.
Yeah, what is really phenomenal is just like you mentioned Maria when you were new, or you mentioned Maria saying, Lulu works. So that was just someone who had, info that you benefited from. That's what it seems to me to be about, this idea of Black Box. The community aspect of it. Definitely, we've talked. That's got to be the thing that separates us. And there's no there maybe the key epicenter of the community, possibly. I hope I'm not wrong, but it seems like it could be Discord voice throughout the day. And even if that's not the main thing, that's a huge thing. So what is it like being on voice all day and being an active trader? Is it tough? Is it great? What's that?
It was hard at first trying to balance it, and it was still in the beginning when I wasn't as comfortable with the pace of the flow. It was very fast, so it didn't even seem like if you clicked on the flow, tried to see what was coming in and pull up chart, you missed so much. And so it's a balancing act, for sure. But I kind of run a Boeing 737 over here. I've got so much, I keep up with a lot. So I've gotten myself pretty organized to keep this machine running. I look at a lot of stuff at one time.
You have more than one screen.
Yeah. So I've got a 55-inch TV. I think it's 55-inch TV, and I've got it split into multiple screens.
Yeah.
So I've got Discord and news, charts, this, that, so there's just a lot. And then I've got some side screen, but it's mainly just so I can somebody, one of the members calls me Medusa because I'm just always looking at everything. And it took a lot to be able to feel, first off, to feel comfortable, because it's quick, right? Like if I'm looking at something, I've got to easily be able to see that flow starting from the bottom, contract price moving up, IV increasing, looks like same buyer, disregarding the bid side. I'm focusing on details and to communicate that and make sure, there are so many people listening. And that's the hardest part sometimes, is that, something that I may have called out on voice, didn't work out, or, just everybody needs to do their due diligence, but it's just, to me, it's gold. I mean, Discord is straight gold. I mean, it's how if I didn't have that, to draw my attention to stuff that I was missing, or Kang talking about the technicals, and a lot of it is the repetition, right? Like that you constantly hear over and over and over. So every time Kang's going through his charts and explaining it, he's saying the same thing all the time. And if we're talking about flow, it's like same strike, same expiration, contract price going up, IV as a double check, that's increasing, and it seems redundant at times, but it is really how I learned, because Charlie would say the same thing, and for somebody that's newer to trading, to try to take and put your arms around all of this is overwhelming. Being able to have, and I think I think what I like most about our team is that nobody trades the same, and you weren't expected to. Charlie wants that diversity. We all want that diversity, and we don't have that ego with, I'm right, I'm wrong. Like, oh, see, told you, Kang. Like, nope, this said this. It's not like that, because we can both be right. Like there's not that. Yeah, and what's even more interesting is, like, I haven't met any of them outside of just being on voice, and I don't think you could really. It seems like we've been, it seems like we're working all out of the same room, for just.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And that's been a common thing related to, and I know there's talk of, a possible meetup in the next year or something. Seems to be getting some traction. Who knows if that's, going to happen, but that's another thing too. It does sound like when I first started listening to voice, when I joined, it struck me as listening to like almost air traffic control. That's kind of what I thought. Like, here's these are some experts clearly talking about different things, and the comments were coming through, and it was very clear that there is a lot of stuff going on. So I just remember being new. I remember it was very apparent to me this is going to take me a while to figure out what the hell's going on, because there's a lot of data coming through with the black box system that we get. So you're right, the Discord voice is invaluable to get that perspective. And it's really amazing too. You guys, the moderators, do not seem to be in any competition with each other, and that's remarkable. That you guys just seem it's not about that. You guys are just doing your thing. You could probably go. You could go trade on your own and be fine. So you're doing this black box gig, and it's great. You're doing it from seems like a teaching kind of standpoint. That's kind of what it all seems like for you guys. So this. Does it ever get to the point, your black box duties, does it ever get to the point where it just seems like it's overwhelming? And, have you ever kind of just thought about, well, I might move on if this or that happens? Or is this just a place where you feel very comfortable and everything's clicking? Because I'm always afraid you guys are going to have enough and leave. I'm always afraid of that.
No, I feel comfortable, and I'm just as dependent, like, TLAM just, it seems like, because you're clicking through so much, and it takes you away from what's coming in. It seems like it's always like that one time I'm clicking on something to kind of give it a deeper analysis, like do some double take, or, well, there's puts and calls, are they closing those, and kind of trying to spend some time to analyze something. Like TLAM's right there picking up what's coming in, and you can only look at one thing at a time, even with so much going on. And so I love, that he's just kind of right there, and getting that information called out. And then, also I can't tell you how many times it seems like Kang's going through a chart, on his Tesla, Amazon, like he's giving this full analysis. And then right then we get like this dark pool print coming at that major level that he's looking at. And so like, it just kind of all comes together. And it's could I trade by myself? Yeah. Would I want to? No, because not only with what is shared with the moderators, but the whole group in general. I mean, we've got some rock stars in there that just, I mean, God, like how awesome is it to be like, I'm not familiar with this company, and somebody stepped right in and they know everything about it. And you're like, oh, and there's a analyst day coming up and they have a new product launch, and they were, just, it's like that quick. How can you get that kind of, and people that, have proven themselves to be extremely reputable and share really good stuff. I mean, I can't keep up with all the news, but that's OMG's thing, invaluable, and that's what I think for somebody, especially that's working, and that's like Jenny, right? Like she's at work, so she's dependent on voice, and she is an amazing trader to be very limited with not having the full visibility and really think of that trust too. That's something I don't take for granted. I do know, and that was I think the hardest thing for me in the beginning was like, oh my God, there's how many people listening? Like, just that there really is a trust. Like you have to, like members of the community have to trust like that I'm looking at stuff and I'm not coming in with a bias. I'm looking at that objectively and just reading that money flow, as it is, and then I'm thorough. There's a lot that comes with it, but I don't. Trading wouldn't be the same if it was just me trading. It's lonely enough, when you work from home and you're just sitting in front of a computer all day. I just think the amount of information and what's shared, I'd still have to be here.
Sure. And there's a lot more people listening these days, which is great. And were you? I think I missed this. Were you trading full time before you came to Black Box?
Yes, I was already trading. I was already trading full time. I had already made that like little leap, and had already been just consistent. It was harder with the flow, I think, for sure, because there was a lot of aspects that I was missing. And I think it just really helped having, Charlie, especially just the whole team, and Mike, I can't even tell you how many times I took that class. But each time something clicked, it really did. And that's, you've got to put some effort in, and I think it was Teresa, said this one day, and it really always stuck with me. And I think it's a really good analogy. This is not a participation sport. You don't make money just.
Right. That's right. That's right. The market doesn't care if you tried your best. And I do want to let you guys know we're up against a 7:00 time limit here with this episode. So if you guys have questions, throw them in the chat for sure. And I did get a DM, someone mentioning full-time trading. Someone is curious what advice you would have for someone who is maybe wanting to make that jump. Are there any hard and fast, number of savings, or like what advice do you have for people who are wanting to go full-time?
You've got to have that cushion. And I think Charlie said it before. He used to say 6 months, and he said he's like, really, if you're really looking to do this full-time, you want to have a whole year. You want to have a year, and you want to have some consistency. So look how interesting the markets have been. We went from a raging, like bull market to COVID, right? And we've had, so if you've been trading for a few years, hopefully you're only thinking about this after actually being exposed to the markets for a while, but you're really seeing how the ebbs and flows, right? Opposed to, when it was 2018, 2019, you could just throw a dart, right? And the market would just went up. Yeah. So at least you're getting some exposure to some of that other side where you don't just have trending market all the time, and how much more difficult it is to navigate with that. And you really have to be, somebody who doesn't come in every day with a bias. That's really hard for some people. They want that narrative, just like you said, that narrative, so people just stay attached to.
Mhm.
So just, you got to have that cushion. And I know Mario says it all the time, and it is true. You need to prove to yourself that you're consistently profitable. And it's just like with a new strategy, with anything else, writing that down, journaling, that's going to be really important. And the cushion,
Yeah,
it's
sure,
hard to
sure.
step, it's hard to go outside of that paycheck that you'd be getting on a consistent basis. And oftentimes, it's nice to be able to have the balance where you're learning trading and actually being able to kind of build and grow your account, while still getting that paycheck. And some people have that ability to trade, while at work, or being able to set themselves up while they're still working. But
Yeah.
that's just,
Mhm.
that's, I think, the end goal, and um, you got to
Uh,
just make sure that you're cushioning yourself and protecting yourself.
yeah. Do you recommend being debt free for people?
I mean, I think anybody, that's going to be something that really helps. I know that was something that had helped me, because I had most everything, I think, except my mortgage, was the only
Yeah.
thing, that I had. That's definitely going to help with some of, just think about that stress, right? And if you're trading stressed, you're usually not
Mm.
making,
Yeah,
the
that's
right
true.
decisions. Your
That's
emotions
true.
end up really coming into play. And so, that's going to be more interpersonal, but I know, like, I can't trade stressed. Nothing good comes of it. Like, I know that time
No,
when I just,
yeah.
maybe I have like two bad trades to start off the day, and I'll just observe the rest of the day. I'll make notes on what I'm seeing in flow. I'm like, my read was wrong, just like, and then I'm stressed about it, and like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, right. Right. And that alone
I'm
is a
off today.
mark.
Something's off today.
Yeah, being able to step away is alone. That alone is a mark of someone who that's the type of discipline, because a lot of people will just keep going and almost just out of spite lose money sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a great question that might be a good one to end on, and I'll say this, Mel. A lot of comments coming in, DMs, and here saying you're incredible. Thanks for all you do. So you've got a lot of
Oh
fans.
man, I get them. I
They
love
love
this
you.
community. Yeah, I love this community. Just a lot of support, and just, you could see everybody putting in that work, and it really does. It pays off, and I love the questions. I love the good questions. Not that. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
That came out all wrong. But those questions where somebody's got a screenshot and they're kind of like they're putting it all together, it's really
Yeah.
starting to click,
Yeah.
and they're like, hey, okay, so am I onto something here? And just, like, I love seeing that stuff. And I get a lot of DMs where people kind of, in the background making everything work, and it just, like, it really makes my day, because it's a
Yeah.
whole different way to trade, that some people just didn't even know was available or out there. And just being able to kind of help shine some light on that. It's just, I was blessed with what I got when I first started the group. So I love giving that back.
Yeah, sure, sure. Well, there's definitely a large group who is very appreciative. And so here's this great question. So someone had a question. When did you coin the term phantom prints? When did that become a thing that you
You know,
started thinking about and then talking about with that term?
so we had already seen, let me see, when was that? If there's been a few of these members on here. So when it really came into play, we had a phantom print come through. That was when it was COVID.
Mhm.
It was like 12 points out of the money to the downside. Like, we hadn't traded there in like months, and I was like, it hasn't canceled. So it's still like,
Hmm.
it's some kind of signaling, or it's some kind of indication of price action. And I just kind of was making notes. We were talking about that one. I know a few had gotten on there, and it just, where you don't have the cancellations, we know that we'll see
Mhm.
fat finger orders, but also where price was attracted at those levels, like, and it just, the biggest turning point, and I think this is where we really were paying a lot of attention. And I think this is what got Charlie really paying attention to Dark Pool. Like, I'm going to tell y'all, like, old dog, new tricks, until this was the turning point for Charlie. So
Okay.
if y'all remember, before we had even traded in the 400 range on SPY,
Hmm.
and I think it was like at 397 was kind of where we were trading at, and we had a 1.2 million share dark pool print at 403.91.
Hmm.
never traded in the 400s. It
Wow.
never canceled. And
Okay.
I was like, it's still live. Like, and how they're able to do that, and like,
Yeah.
is it
That's
signaling?
right. Right.
Like what, like
What's
how is
that?
that?
Yes.
Hello, SEC. Are y'all paying attention
Right.
here? Like,
Right.
and so it just kind of started to be something that we were tracking, and we had
Hmm.
several really good, example. Now, what made it hard, I think the SPY, the Qs, we always have so many eyes on those and what's coming through the dark pool. So it made it with so many in the room helping as well. Like, hey, we haven't traded here. This looks like one of those, and we'd watch it for cancels. And then you had, we didn't really catch it in a lot of the individual names just because there's so much that comes through. We have almost, what, 12, 1,500 dark pool prints a day. That's a lot to keep up with and then go back, for 24 hours.
Right.
And so it was just, it was hard to explain as far as, what would you call it? I mean, like, how were they able to get away with it? So it was just like, okay, it's not like it's trading at that level, just kind of a way to communicate that, like, it's very outside of where we are. So why they're doing this and how they can do this, we just to have some, to kind of have a term, because I think we called it very like we didn't know really what to call it. To tell you the truth, I was like, okay, let's just call this like a phantom print because it's outside of where we are with range, and really how are they even able to do this? We don't know, but it's still price action. It didn't cancel, so we're paying attention to it. But several examples, and that's actually this last little, gosh, the last like 2 months, we had a ton come through the SPY. We had it in the Qs. We had one in Amazon. We had one, like, it was just insane once we really kind of got all the eyes on it. And that's why I talked to Charlie and I was like, I think we need an alert because I can't keep up with, I said, we're missing so many because we need that to be kind of coded. And he had Eric work on that, and he got that pushed through fast. Really appreciate those that are helping on the back end, for making some of these new alerts, just always trying to improvise. And so now we have a lot more data to work with and can continue to kind of track those and see, what works. One thing I've noticed is like a lot of the SPACs, because those they're very tight ranges. You may have those show. I haven't really been paying as close attention to those because I think it's more a function of how the spreads are set up there. So you're just within a few cent range, but definitely like the ones that come in on, the SPYs and the Qs, and some of those individual names, and to see some of those play out, the same day in some instances, have made some great trading opportunities. And I think it'll be something we'll still continue to, fine tune now that we have a lot more data to work around, and we could capture a lot more. Seems like what we had in the past was just, just a handful, but more data, you can work with that.
Yeah, it makes me kind of naturally wonder. I wonder what the institutions are doing in their, private places that we just don't know about. It just makes me infinitely curious about, like you said, the money flow and institutional money, and it's just it's a fascinating thing, and it's great that you are at Black Box, leading us. And phantom prints is an amazing term, by the way. That's an amazing contribution. I appreciate you coming on the show today. What would you say last minute or two if someone has joined, someone's thinking about quitting? How would you encourage them to hang on for another week? What would be some words of wisdom? Why should they hang on?
I just think be patient with yourself. This is not something that just it's going to be and happen just like that. But through time, you'll start to see and you'll hear a lot of, how we're starting to see the money come in before we have some of these bigger shifts in the market. And we definitely saw that on this drop. Remember, I think it was like 3 months ago, NVIDIA, SMH, we had just really big size, come through, and we're able to kind of start to see where we had like puts in TECL, which is 3 times leverage, like when you can start to get and put all of it, and it doesn't come overnight, and don't have that expectation. You're learning something completely new. So just like any indicator that you're using, if you're not testing that, back testing that, like tweaking that, trying to find, there's not anything in this market that's going to be 100%. But I will tell you, the larger the volume and options and the volume that's traded in dark pool activity is insane comparative to what is traded retail, right? And we know that's a lot of the institutions. Like,
That's true.
I don't know how you can not pay attention to that just by pure volume. You know, with dark pool activity accounting for almost 40% of all common shares traded, and
that's insane.
And then if you go back and do some research a few years ago on the options market, how much options are used and how they're becoming like what to trade instead of shares. And then we know that as retail, we do that, but the amount of volume that keeps increasing year over year, like you have to kind of have eyes on this to give yourself that edge in the market. Just be patient with yourself.
Yeah, that's great advice. It takes a couple weeks for most people to just start doing it, and 40% of common shares are dark pool. That's just that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, everyone, Mel Stone has to leave us. You have more things tonight. You have all kinds. You're a very busy trader, and I appreciate your time coming on the show for sure. At Mel Stone 31 on Twitter. Thanks so much for coming on, and I'll see you around the office for sure. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, River. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Well, there she was. Mel Stone. I tell you, the dark pool is amazing in every way, and really glad she came on the show tonight. And for you guys who came, let me also say I appreciate you guys coming to the live event. And if you're listening afterward on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you are, thank you for listening to Riverside Chats. Subscribe, listen. I'm glad you guys listen. I have a great job, and if you guys don't listen, I don't have it. So I see the comments. Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys showed up. I agree. People are saying Mel is amazing. Does Mel have children? Yes. Mel is incredible. Yeah, I agree with all of these. You can't disagree with these comments. There's no way. Dark pool and flow shows where the money is. I can't disagree with any of those things. Like I said, thank you very much for you guys for showing up. I hope you had a great day in the market, and I hope you're having a great day in the Black Box Stocks community. Riverside Chats. My name is River, and also I have a new podcast project. If you're just dying to listen to more of my horrible voice and accent, Hells and the Hippie. Another Black Box Stocks moderator, Hells Bells, and I have teamed up to do a discussion podcast where we talk about all sorts of things you're not supposed to talk about, like politics, religion, all kinds of things. And we disagree a lot, and we yell at each other in a respectful way, and it's definitely available also for your listening, hopefully, enjoyment. Nonetheless, Hells and the Hippie, Riverside Chats, also every now and then with 7-Star Mike. You guys know him? Yes. 7-Star Mike himself. We do a small seminar / show called What Went Wrong, where we talk about losing trades, because we all have losing trades. I know I've had a few this week for sure. And we do that also through the GoToWebinar Black Box Stocks education system. So check that out. There's all sorts of opportunities to listen to me ramble on into your earpods or your car speakers. I don't know. How do you guys listen to this podcast? Are you listening? Okay. So yeah, driving around, running. Someone is running right now. So excellent. Don't run too fast. You want to not get, don't hurt yourself running. You got to jog, go slowly. All right. Where's the music button? There it is. Thank you again. Thank you for showing Riverside Chats. Deep dives into all things Black Box Stocks. Again, thank you very much to my guest, Mel Stone, Dark Pool Queen. And have a great day. I hope you guys have a good week in the market. And I will see you around the community. Again, truly, thanks for listening and have a great day.